For that. And our final speaker is Wilma. So Wilma is a capacity development advisor, sociologist, educator, activist, and farmer. So a woman with many roles. These days she spends much of her time as a sales associate at Appleton Chocolates, which I understand is a local chocolate company for those not from the area. And at Windy Mountain Road Farm as the homesteading economist and manager, which is a twist on the idea of a home economist, what so many women have been in the past without any recognition.
I'm not going to use this unless I need to. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to shoot this. So I guess I just sort of got a call, or I guess a Facebook message, ooh, crackbook message, to sort of fill in as the third person. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background about kind of what myself and my partner Ross and what we're doing on our land, just to give you a bit more of a background about where I'm coming from and just some comments that I want to make about alternative economics in general, so to speak, to sort of step back. I'm always like a big picture thinker. But so we own about 110 acres outside of River John. I have owned it for about 15 years. And so we're essentially, we would call ourselves preppers / permies, which is the abbreviation for permaculturalists / transition town folk as such. And so we're drawing from those three main kind of, I don't know if you want to call them schools of thoughts or way of, trying to lifestyle, etc., and bringing those together to homestead, essentially. Trying to create infrastructure and other systems that make us as self-sufficient as possible. So we are on solar power, we're setting up a wind turbine shortly. We've got well water, we have wood to heat our house, and we have woods that we can cut and all that kind of stuff. But we are planning for shit hitting the fan, essentially, of which we feel very strongly we're in it already now as such. And unfortunately, the masses are in denial, or they're in depression. If you look at the, stages of grief, essentially most folks are not, they're definitely not in the, what's the final, acceptance stage, right? They're a little bit, and we do go back and forth, I think, those of us who are maybe in acceptance, but sometimes we still get depressed and, we get angry, and all that kind of stuff. So, so one of the things, like we actually also tried to set up a community, an intentional community over 5 years ago, trying many different ways to connect with people who might want to live in community, who don't have access to land, who maybe don't have other connections of people who think along these lines, and trying to think about, we need to be, working on solutions now and not just, oh, it's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, in 2050 or whatever. We have not been successful, I think, for a number of reasons. I mean, we feel to a certain extent that most folks are still stuck in the cult of individualism, and they're just simply they want their own land. I get it, so that you can make your own decisions and you don't have to communicate and deal with disagreements with people. You're going to be in conflict with people, and I would like to think that, unfortunately, we're not really raised and socialized, and we don't get the education that we need to deal with conflict in a respectful way. Canadian culture is like strong emotions, ooh, that's bad, right, kind of thing, and it's like, no, we've got to, get angry. It's okay to be angry, as such, but you need support through that process. So I guess the one thing that, talking about these examples, which I think, are wonderful examples, and I sort of envision, I'm really feeling a huge sense of urgency, but also seeing an opportunity, not just, I don't live in Tatamagouche, so I'm not part of this little network here as such, even though I am connected to it via other people who are here, or via River John, via Pictou, etc. as such. But I really feel that if we are going to, survive, so to speak, that we need to, I have no faith in government at any level to help us, so to speak. It's about us, the grassroots, sort of coming together, and I guess the new term, it's not a new expression, but I've heard this idea of localism, so where you get almost like autonomous regions or communities coming together, and that they will barter and trade and, help each other, do, work parties, whatever it might be. But I sort of feel that if I look at Tatamagouche, that I have been told, and I don't know how accurate this is to a certain extent, but so there's wind turbines up on the mountains back there that supply energy here. So there is a source of electricity. There obviously are woods. There's water systems in terms of river systems. You have the salt water if you needed to do food preservation. There's farmland for food preservation or for growing food, etc. So you need to be thinking about what do you need to live? You need food, you need shelter, you need some source of energy. And if we think that we're going to be living with our pickup trucks and our cars as such, like that's just not going to be happening. And so we need to be thinking about how are we going to be, engaging in transportation as such in between these little villages, perhaps, or these localized sort of, autonomous regions that are going to be trying to, provide for the community as such. I am concerned about the fact because of the history around here and I mean around here meaning the maritime provinces in terms of the settler and indigenous peoples conflicts, but even amongst the settlers themselves. I'm sorry, Tatamagouche is not a hunky-dory, everything's fine place, despite the fact that that seems to be put out there constantly as such. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of division underneath the surface if people would just open their eyes. But there's not mechanisms really for people to deal with that. I mean, I'm learning with Appleton Chocolates that it's like, wow, businesses maybe don't even really get along that well, in Tatamagouche. It's like, surprise, surprise. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. That is, unfortunately, the nature of human beings to a certain extent. We have perception. Perceptions are different amongst people as such. But I also feel that one thing that's really lacking is, there's lots of people who have small businesses, whether it's trades, in food systems, et cetera, as such. But we're lacking a lot of small businesses in things that we are desperately going to be needing when we will not have the energy to build the things we want to build as such, i.e. cheap fossil fuels. We are going to need, blacksmiths, people working with metal and woods, but they're not going to be plugging into electricity or getting propane fuel or whatever. If they're doing welding, that they're going to have the tanks with whatever, materials you do with welding as such. That's not going to be possible. And I'm not being, I can appreciate that maybe some people think it's like, whoa, I'm being alarmist. No, I'm being a realist, essentially. And I'm planning for that future, but the future is happening right now. So I really feel like we obviously need those plumbers, we need those electricians, but there's a whole whack of skill sets out there that are not being done by people. And fair enough, we don't have good apprenticeship programs at our community colleges for that, but I think there is a wealth of knowledge amongst the people in this room as such who could be teaching some of these skills, who could be, again, if you think about what is it that you need in your life to survive, so to speak, and, we all want to have some fun and contentment and all that kind of stuff too. To make music, you don't need a bloody guitar. You just put two sticks together or you just, tap your hand. So there's ways that we can be doing things that are much simpler, that don't require a lot of energy, so to speak, or the resources that we will not have access to, essentially. What else do I want to say? How much time do I have?
Yeah, 5 more minutes at least.
Okay, very good. I guess, and so the one thing that I kind of wanted to draw attention to, which there's issues not simply about, the basic needs that we have, but at a fundamental level, we have to be thinking about building community, having good relationships with people, and that doesn't mean you have to love everybody or even like everybody, but that there is respect and that there is going to be difference, there's going to be disagreement, etc. as such. But when things start to get really bad, which, with this kind of summer that we've had and all the fires, and then there's, flooding is going to be happening, etc., we need to be thinking about security as such. There are folks who are going to be wanting to take what other people have. And if you don't have security systems set up, whether it's amongst your property or amongst your community as such, you have to be thinking about that sort of stuff. And I guess security is really on my mind just because of some articles that I don't go for mainstream media in terms of, getting the deep analysis for what's really going on. I go to alternative, non-mainstream sort of websites and stuff like that and read deeply about, what is it that we need to actually be in community and to survive, so to speak. And so security is a big one that a lot of people, especially Canadians, because it's like we're so anti-gun culture, oh, we don't want to do that. It's like, oh, everybody's nice and friendly. No, they're not going to be nice. When people are starving, when people, are freezing or whatever it is, people are not going to be nice as such, right? So how do you address that? And it's not about what are you going to do? Are you going to take in everybody who comes by? You can't, because then you're all going to starve, so to speak, right? So you need to be thinking about how do you work in community and supporting other communities to be as self-sufficient as they possibly can too. So, sharing of knowledge, etc., sharing of skills. The final thing that I wanted to say, I'm really looking for, this is sort of a takeaway for me. I want to engage with people in this North Shore region. So for those of you who are from this area, to seriously start to be thinking about what does localism really look like and how can we work towards it. And I mean starting now, not in a few years' time when it's too late, or it's just going to be so much more complicated and challenging because people will be much more desperate, etc. as such. So if anybody is wanting to continue talking about these sorts of issues, but I'm talking really in depth, and not about people coming to my land to build a community as such, but just the point is, how are we going to work on the North Shore? I mean, I just sort of see this as the region kind of where I'm going to be. I'm not going to be going to Halifax. I'm not going to Moncton. It's going to be a North Shore kind of, and whether that's contained by Pictou or New Glasgow or whatever, I don't know. Obviously, we have water as transportation systems. You can get to places probably a lot faster eventually in the future using water, boats as such, instead of thinking you're going to be driving your car, because you're not going to be driving your car. Only the super wealthy are going to have that. So if there's anybody who wants to really kind of engage deeply with these sort of issues and start thinking about and planning, and it's not about one size fits all, it's not about that there are solutions out there, there are ideas for solutions, they may work or they need to be modified, applicable to different situations, etc. as such, but that's what I'm really looking for from the people around me and those who are stuck, who have come to the acceptance phase, not people who are in the denial phase, not people who are in the depressed phase. I can't help those people. You're talking to a brick wall often. It's unfortunately so. They're just going to have to learn the hard way to a certain extent. And it's not that I want to abandon people, but you can't do it all, so to speak, in that sense either. So if anybody, so this is a rally call for me anyways, to sort of get out there and get people together to start really having some pretty deep discussions about this on a regular basis and start some planning as such. And not just only, again, because I don't live in Tatamagouche, it just can't be Tatamagouche focused. It's got to be a little bit broader than that. But anyways, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.